Welcome to Folk and Fairy Tales. I'm your host, Dark, and tonight we will be diving into Indian Legends of the Pacific Northwest by Ella E. Clark. Illustrations by Robert Bruce in Verity, if we get any. They are rare. Tonight we are reading Mount Shasta and the Grizzly Bears. At night, when no wars or excitement of any kind stirred the village, the Indians would gather in the chiefs or other great bark lodges around the fires and tell and listen to their stories. A red wall of men in a great circle, the women a little way back, and the children still behind, asleep in the skins and blankets, so silent. You can hear but one voice at a time in an Indian village. Thus, the poet and adventurer Joaquin Miller described the storytelling custom among the Modoc of southern Oregon and northern California as he knew it when he lived among them in the 1850s. At such firelight gatherings, he learned his stories about Mount Shasta, which can be seen from the Modoc area. Mount Shasta is a snow-covered peak in Southern California, 14,161 feet in altitude. The story begins. Before people were on the earth, the chief of the sky spirits grew tired of his home in the above world because it was always cold up there. So he made a hole in the sky by turning a stone round and round. Through this hole, he pushed snow and ice until he made a great mound that reached from the earth almost all the way to the sky. Later, people named it Mount Shasta. Then, the sky spirit stepped from the cloud to the peak and walked down the mountain. When he was about halfway down to the valley below, he thought, on this mountain there should be trees. He put his finger to the ground here and there, and wherever his finger touched the ground, a tree began to grow. In his footsteps, the snow melted, and the water ran down in the rivers. The sky spirit broke off the small end of the giant stick he had carried from the sky and threw the pieces into the rivers. The longer pieces became heavier and otter. The smaller pieces became fish. From the big end of the stick, he made the animals. Biggest of them all were the grizzly bears. They were covered with hair, and they had sharp claws, just as they have today, but they walked on 2 feet and could talk. They looked so fierce that the sky spirit sent them away from him to live in the forest at the base of the mountain. When the leaves began to drop from the trees, he began to pick them up, blew upon them, and so made the birds. Then the chief of the sky spirits decided to stay here on earth, and so bring his family down from the sky. The mountain became their lodge. He made a big fire in the center of the mountain and put a hole in the top so that the smoke and sparks could fly out. When he put a big log on the fire, sparks would fly up and the earth would tremble. Later, in the spring, while the sky spirit and his family were sitting around the fire, the wind spirit sent a big storm that shook the top of the mountain. It blew and blew and roared mighty. Smoke blown black into the lodge hurt the people's eyes, and at last the sky spirit said to his youngest daughter, "Go up to the smoke hole and ask the wind spirit to blow more gently. Tell him I am afraid he will blow the mountain over." His little daughter was glad to go. As she started, her father spoke again. "Be very careful when you get to the top. Don't put your head out. If you do put it out, the wind may catch your hair and blow you away. Just thrust out your arm and make a sign, and then speak to the wind spirit." The little girl hurried to the mountain and spoke to the wind spirit. As she was about to start back, she remembered that her father had said the ocean could be seen from the top of the lodge. He had made the ocean since the family moved from the sky, and his daughter had never seen it. She put her head out of the hole and toward the west. The wind spirit caught her long hair, pulled her out of the mountain, and blew her down over the snow and over the ice. She landed among the scrubby fir trees at the edge of the timber and snow line, her long red hair trailing over the snow. There, Grizzly Bear found her when he was out hunting food for his family. He carried the little girl home with him, wondering who and what she was. Mother Bear took good care of her and brought her up with their family of cubs. The little red-haired girl and the cubs ate together, played together, and grew up together. When she became a young woman, she and the eldest son of the Grizzly Bears married. In the years that followed, they had many children. The children did not look like their father or like their mother. They were not so hairy as the Grizzlies, and yet they did look like, they did not, the children did not look like their father or like their mother. They were not so hairy as the Grizzlies, and yet they did not look like spirits either. All the grizzly bears throughout the forest were proud of these new creatures. They were so pleased and were so kind-hearted that they made a lodge for the red-haired mother and her strange-looking children. They built the lodge near Mount Shasta, Little Mount Shasta it is called today. And after many years had passed, Mother Grizzly Bear knew that she would soon die. Fearing that she had done wrong in keeping the daughter of the chief of the sky spirits away from her father, she felt that she should send word to him and ask his forgiveness. So she asked all the Grizzlies to join her at the new lodge they had built. Then she sent her oldest grandson to the top of Mount Shasta in a cloud to tell the spirit chief where he could find his long-lost daughter. The father was so glad that he came down the mountainside in giant strides. He hurried so fast that the snow melted off in places under his feet. Even today, his tracks can be seen in the rocky path, south side of Mount Shasta. As he neared the lodge, he called out, Is this where my little daughter lives?" He expected to see a little girl, exactly as she had looked when he saw her last. When he saw the strange creatures his daughter was taking care of, and learned that they were his grandchildren, he was angry. A new race had been created, and he had not known about it. He frowned on the old grandmother so sternly that she died at once. Then he cursed all of the grizzlies. "Get down on your hands and knees. From this moment, all of you grizzlies shall walk on 4 feet, and you shall never talk again. You have wronged me." He drove his grandchildren out from the lodge, put his daughter over his shoulder, and climbed back up the mountain. Never again did he come to the forest. Some say that he put out the fire in the center of his lodge and took his daughter back up to the sky to live. Those strange creatures, his grandchildren, scattered and wandered over the earth. They were the first Indians, the ancestors of all the Indian tribes. That is why the Indians living around Mount Shasta would never kill a grizzly bear. Whenever one of them was killed by a grizzly, his body was burned on the spot. And for many years, all who passed that way cast a stone there until a great pile of stones marked the place of his death. And that is the story of Mount Shasta and the Grizzlies from the Indian legends of the Pacific Northwest. Come back tomorrow for more. Until next time, I'm Dark, and it's bedtime. Good night.